Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with Bretonnia, and I apologize, I'm showing you guys some filthy peasants. Let's get something better to look at. There we go. A heroic knight with the virtue of empathy, I believe it's called, on foot. Anyway, so Bretonnia versus the High Elves this time. This is going to be a battle submitted by viewer Ratman. He's gone with an infantry-heavy Bretonnia versus the High Elves, which, you know, if this is going to work against any faction, it should work against one of the Elves, because I think generally Bretonnia definitely has an advantage here. So let's take a look at the build. It's going to be led by a Prophetess Lore of Beasts. Very interesting choice. She's got damage spells, so Flock of Doom and Amber Spears, so we've got the Attack Prophetess here, supported by the Beast Slayers of Bastogne. We've also got the Paladin, of course, as you saw. A couple of Peasant Arrows, Pox and Fire Arrows. Interesting choice. I actually believe this is a big mistake against the High Elves. I'll tell you why in a minute. Men-at-Arms with shields up front. We've got some Spearmen-at-Arms, more Fire Arrows. Let's see, Beast Slayers of Bastogne we already saw. A couple more Foot Squires, 4 more in fact. Knights Lionhearted and Grail Knights. So only 2 units of cavalry. We've also got the Grail Relic, of course, to support leadership. For the High Elves, they've got a Noble up on an Eagle, which is probably the worst possible mount choice for him. I'll talk about why again later. We've got the Star Dragon here. A couple units of Spearmen, 3 Lothern Seaguard, the Pure Main Company, 2 archers with light armor, a couple of Spearmen, and Teclis. He's going to be carrying, we've got Nets of Amantok, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and Flock of Doom. No regrowth. Very interesting to not see the regrowth, especially with a Star Dragon on the field. You would think that he'd want to dump some Winds of Magic into that big boy. But anyway, you can see the Bretonnian forces pulling up on station, going to be in range of the long-range High Elf archers. The peasants going to be trying to return fire, and the Fire Arrows. Why are they a big mistake here? Well, there's nothing on the High Elf roster that's weak to fire damage, and in fact, there are several units on the High Elf roster that are resistant to fire damage, so I would actually say that bringing the Fire Arrows in themselves is a huge mistake against the High Elves. Well, not necessarily a huge mistake. It's probably not going to lose you the game, but it is a mistake. I would definitely say all 3 of these guys should be the Pox Arrow variant, but here comes the Assault of Stone, the bound spell from the Prophetess coming in and bombarding the Pure Main Company and those Lothern Seaguard, doing some pretty solid damage actually, considering it's a relatively cheap item. And all across the board, the Lothern Seaguard going to be getting charged by peasants. Spearmen also getting engaged here, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Star Dragon so far not getting involved. He really needs to come, like, drop a quick terror bomb in some of these areas away from the Grail Relic. That way he can terrify away some of these Bretonnian infantry very quickly. But the Prophetess in the front line dropping some Flock of Doom. Nope, that's actually Flock of Doom from Teclis. So the Flock of Doom from the Prophetess is over here, in fact. So all the Flocks of Doom going. Looks like we're also going to be getting that bound fiery convocation just roasting down the line of peasants, so that'll definitely clean them up in a hurry. Unfortunately, it does clip this Lothern Seaguard as well, so quite a bit of friendly fire being done there. But, you know, it's probably a benefit at the end of the day. The Star Dragon, though, is going to be in a rough situation because Ratman's doing a very good job keeping these Knights of the Lionhearted and the Grail Knights in a reserve. Because the High Elves don't have any mobile units, I mean, he could try and push around the flank, but this is exactly what he needs to do, is keep them in reserve so that when the Star Dragon comes down, he can immediately just countercharge in and get the work done. So, of course, infantry-heavy Bretonnia doesn't necessarily mean that the Knights needed to do all the heavy lifting. Anyway, in the front line, Foot Squires have now got engaged without taking too much arrow fire, which is definitely what needed to happen. Meanwhile, the Men-at-Arms are actually trading okay with the Spearmen here, especially with the Grail Relic dudes like kicking the High Elf Spearmen in the face. Beautiful. And Pure Main Company, of course, are going to be winning out here. Just about to finish off the Paladin there, but the Beast Slayers of Bastogne going to be moving in. The Pure Main Company will cut through them, no problem as well. So, a little bit of a rough engagement there. But so far, things are pretty even. Star Dragon has taken some damage, but Teclis using that Nets of Amantok to spring him loose. Going to drop a devastating breath attack, just roasting out this pocket, although I definitely would have rather seen that breath attack go down on the Grail Knights. They're obviously a much more high value target. That being said, I mean, what, like 1,300 points worth of foot squires fighting here. It's not a bad target as well. Definitely some effective damage done there. And man, look at that nice little arc of fire. Whoa! Amber Spear just cuts through the entire unit of archers just about. Holy cow, talk about a devastating Amber Spear there. And yeah, definitely like that pick. In case of like Dragon Princess and stuff, you typically will see Lore of Life with Bretonnia. I also do like Lore of Heavens quite a bit for wide builds like this, but some very effective use of Lore of Beasts right there. And unfortunately didn't have any Dragon Princess to shoot at, but that side shot through those archers, definitely devastating. But now that the Grail Knights have, and Knights Lionhearted have mostly seen off the Star Dragon. The Star Dragon's not a huge threat right now. They are able to come through, get a couple of good strikes here, and this is a big waste of a bound fiery convocation. The cavalry are able to easily pull away from that, so I would have much rather seen that down this main line of infantry where they can't really move away. The paladin actually able to survive there, and the Pure Main Company, you know, with the support from the foot squires and the other units there, are able to just about yeah, they're probably going to lose this engagement here. So another Amber Spear, swing and a miss on the Star Dragon. He's going to come down and try and nom these archers here, but honestly, the much more high value pocket is these Knights. I would have, you know, it's risky, but I would have liked to have seen the Star Dragon almost charge directly onto this big blob of Knights, just because his splash attacks will do a ton of damage, and he can probably finish off quite a few unit models that way. Again, I think the High Elf player just kind of losing focus a little bit in trying to focus on a lot of these cheaper kind of periphery troops, whereas a lot of the Bretonnian stopping power is wrapped up in these units right here. If he was able to take out these Knights, the Star Dragon could more or less cycle charge the rest of his infantry with impunity. There's not a lot the Bretonnian player could do about it, so I definitely think the High Elf player is making some mistakes here, but nonetheless, going to try and spring Teclis loose, which is definitely not a mistake. He's getting beat up a little bit here by the Paladin and so on, so if Teclis can get loose, that's definitely going to be beneficial for the High Elves, but at this point the balance power is tipping. Ooh, looks like the Prophetess actually got gooned there by the Star Dragon, so maybe not too much of a mistake, but again, I definitely think that just overall, not going after these Knights is going to come back to haunt him, and you can see, speaking of coming back to haunt him, the Knights are indeed coming back to haunt, and yeah, the mobile flying unit's going to desperately get back up into the air. But, ooh, man, how did they not catch that eagle? That was really awkward looking. But anyway, you can see Teclis desperately trying to get away from these Grail Knights. At this point, there's very few ground units left for the High Elves, so we're going to fast forward a little bit through this late game as the Star Dragon and the Noble come down on top of the Beast Slayers of Bastogne. The Grail Relic is here as well. Looks like they're trying to goon the Grail Relic potentially, but the Knights are close enough on station that they can charge in, get some damage done, and the Noble and the Star Dragon are pretty much done for at this point, having been caught like this, especially with the Beast Slayers of Bastogne. Looks like they're actually chasing the archers off, but oh, now they get turned around and pathed on an appropriate target here. With them supporting especially, this is just going to be bad news for the High Elves here, so yeah, it's going to be a victory for Bretonnia. We are going to go through a bit of a cleanup phase here, but thankfully the Paladin able to pull through, you know, survive everything despite having fought the Pure Main Company for himself for quite a while, and support the leadership of the Bretonnian forces remaining. You can see the High Elves getting pushed back here by the gross peasants. And over here, the Star Dragon still just tanking damage from the Grail Knights. You can see it's able to do some good damage to the Grail Knights. And again, if it had been able to focus down the Grail Knights earlier on in the battle, or even if Teclis had just brought regrowth, like for this exact situation right now, pop a regrowth on that dragon, and all of a sudden it can probably finish off these units of Knights. It's going to be risky, but you know, misuse of the breaths and just not focusing on these Grail Knights and the Knights of Lionhearted, I think, is what's going to cost this High Elf player ultimately. But yeah, we'll go ahead and fast forward through this late game as the Star Dragon comes down, gets finished off by the glorious Bretonnian Knights, and yeah, Teclis tries to drop a Flock of Doom there, but he gets chased off by the Knights eventually as well, and that'll be the end of the High Elves. So very well played to both players. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Certainly see what Ratman was going for there, and I think had the High Elves gone with some other units, like Dragon Princes and stuff, you know, I definitely see the Amber Spear working out well there. Just in general, the mass bodies strategy works quite well against the High Elves because they really don't have cheap enough units to ever bring enough unit models to the table to counter something like this. I mean, really, their only recourse is to hold out with healing and more elite units and just try and outlast, but You know, definitely I kind of see what they were going for there, but I did point out the few mistakes High Elf player did make throughout the battle. I do think that had he had brought regrowth or just even played a handful of things differently with the Star Dragon, he probably still could have won that battle, potentially. It was pretty close at the end of the day. The other big mistake, I would say, is bringing the Noble up on an Eagle. There's really no reason at all to bring a Noble on an Eagle. Let's go ahead and just quickly do a stat comparison here. So, popping on over to the High Elves. So, the Noble on foot has anti-large armor piercing. If you put him on the horse, he has anti-large armor piercing, makes him a bit faster. He's got 100 armor, you know, good combat stats. Again, anti-large armor piercing. Then you put him on the Griffin. He has more overall, or sorry, not a Griffin, a Grey Eagle. He has more overall weapon strength, but no anti-large. He has less armor-piercing value overall, 220 compared to 168. The charge bonus does go up slightly. He has slightly more health as well, but significantly less armor. Of course, faster speed, but also worse melee defense as well. So you're getting no armor-piercing, no anti-large, objectively worse defensive stats with worse melee defense, which if you've watched my videos for any length of time, you know I constantly am on about melee defense being the most important stat in Total War Warhammer 2, because it is. And so lowering that makes your unit objectively worse. I mean, granted, you do have the extra maneuverability and speed and the ability to fly, but you have less offensive power, less defensive power, all at the cost of mobility and at a greater, you know, point cost as well. It's 150 points more expensive to go with the Grey Eagle, and especially against a faction where you know you're going to be facing heavy cavalry in some aspect. Well, I mean, I guess they could technically bring no cavalry at all, but that would be super subpar, and you could probably just cycle charge him with the Star Dragon at that point. But just bringing him on the horse instead of the Eagle, I think, would have been a huge, huge benefit. He could have supported much better against the Knights. Even in the frontline engagement, he could have supported much better. So, yeah, I definitely think taking the Noble on the Grey Eagle is a big mistake. And even in campaign, I would say the only reason you want to take the Eagle is to unlock the Chariot. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.